In this video, I want to talk about two power paradigms, have, do, be, and be, do, have. I'm going to explain where they come from, how to switch them, why you want to switch them, how Christ switched them within the historical context of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's going to be exciting, but I want to apologize up front. My laptop gets really noisy at the end. The fan is trying to keep it cool. I hope that you are glued in enough to the content that will be negligible to you, but I will try and fix that in the future. Thank you for bearing with me. There are two ways of being. One is an energy movement from have to do to be, and the other one is the movement from being to doing to having. And everyone is affected by these. They're really the only two ways of being that there are. And where do they come from? The first one comes from, well, hold on. Before I get to that, let me explain these two movements so you can recognize them in yourself. The first one, have, do, be. This is the energy of like, I've got to have the car, the house, the spouse, the life that the Joneses have. I've got to have the material goods, the riches. I've got to have sufficient for my needs and way beyond. How far beyond? Well, that is never answered from the author or by the author of this strategy, by this energy flow. So the energy is, I got to have this. And so I'm going to do what it takes to get those things. And what's the purpose of it all? It's so that I can arrive at a sense of like, now I can just be. I got to have the life. I got to have the things so that I can finally rest and be me, be happy, be at the place or location, like have arrived, be there. That's the energy flow. The other one starts with, I am full. I am abundance. I already have what I'm seeking. I'm here to give. I'm overflowing. So because there's spillover, I'm going to do stuff with it. What am I going to do? Whatever I want. I'm going to play. I have freedom. And I'm going to give because it's extra. So I'm going to give. And then as we give, turns out karma brings stuff back to us, so we end up having. So we abide in being, and then we do stuff from that because nature is playful. And turns out the world loves that. The universe loves that, so it gives us stuff for being playful. Just like parents provide lunch for their kids after recess. The universe likes the playing. So those are the two paradigms. And all that we do is fueled by one of those energies. That's it. That's all that there is. And one, where do they come from? One comes from the body. The first one comes from the flesh. And it is a power over kind of approach because I got to go get. It's a getting behavior. It's a grabbing because I got to have. That's the energy. I got to have. And then the idea is, this is a strategy of the flesh, and it's built into the survival mechanism. It is so animal brain. It is so survival instinct. It scans the physical temporal realm and says there's not enough. Scarcity. Fight and kill and steal and do whatever it takes to get. Because have is the first part of this power structure. And then after I cheat, steal, lie, and sleep my way to the top, then I can be happy and a whole human. I will have reached success. And that's like the goal. That's the arrival point, is being. Okay. Well, this power paradigm yields short-term results. You really can rise up in certain ways through this strategy. We've seen it throughout world history. It does work. The problem is it works for the short term. So why do we want to switch the paradigm, flip it, invert it? Because that is the power paradigm of sustainability. It switches from power over to power with. It switches from win-lose to win-win. And some would call the first one a masculine energy. And some would call the second one a feminine energy. But I will call the first one a God of the Old Testament energy. And I'm fine with it being called masculine energy, but I prefer to call the second energy a Christian energy. And I'm also fine with it being called a feminine energy because Christ taught by his example about power. And his coming and being nailed to the cross flipped the power paradigm so that we, in our pursuit of meeting our needs, because that's what these strategies are, have, do, be, do, have, they're strategies for meeting needs. One originates from the flesh, the part of our human soul that belongs to the animal kingdom. And of course, it's scarcity mindset. Of course, it feels like it has to have because it's worried about starvation and extinction at all times. The other strategy emerges from our spirit, which is the second half of the human soul. The human soul is body and spirit. So the strategy that comes from the spirit says, who needs me? Who needs? Here I am. I'm complete. I'm whole. I have it all. It is outward flowing. It is service oriented. In that sense, it could be understood as masculine. But it is Christ-like, to be sure. Whatever terms you're using currently in your coming to understand masculine and feminine dynamics, it is outward flowing. It is service oriented. It is giving, and Christ flips the switch. So how? How does he do that? Because as we start with the flesh, which is normal, it's common, we're born into the world, we come out the womb and the world says, oh, you're Justin. And I'm like, what? Go back to playing. The world says, hey, Justin. I'm like, what is happening? What are they talking about? And they say it enough times, I'm like, oh, I'm Justin. So this form, this body, like, that's Justin. That's what we're all endowed with. Like, that's old us. That's the old name. And so the strategies that form our body produces it's understandable. That's how we begin. And then Christ, understanding that, came to earth in the meridian of time and showed us that he understood it. When blood came from every pore, he's like, I feel the pain of your failed strategies for meeting your needs. He experienced it, understood it. We killed him, and he's like, I got more. Comes out the tomb, resurrected, a tangible expression of abundance. And he says, I can give this to you. I can give you this same indestructibility. I can give you a sense of abundance. And so as we follow him and we watch him and we think like him and we have the faith in the things that he had the faith in, namely the Father and the realness of the spirit world and the fleeting, vanishing, deceitful ways of the mortal world. And we learn to trust that which is real, really real. Then we start to shift our power paradigm. We start, instead of saying, gotta go get, gotta go grab, gotta go steal, gotta go take. Christ says to us, those strategies are forgiven. I felt them. I saw them. I know what you did. I know why you did it. I came to show you that it's okay. But have you noticed that they're not working? Have you noticed that you don't feel whole and complete? Though you have a lot of money now, though you had all the sex you wanted, you tried the drugs. Have you noticed yet? And if you have, I want you to know it's okay. I forgive you. But we're going to do things new now. I'm going to give you a new name representing your new power paradigm, your new shift. And all things will be made new, because when you lead with spirit, old power paradigm, have, do, be, strategy constructed by the flesh. New power paradigm, and by power paradigm, I just mean the strategy employed for meeting needs, yours, your family's, and the whole world's. When those strategies are employed, it has an effect, cause and effect. That's the power I'm talking about. When you do that, you're going to start to notice your needs get met. The needs of your spirit and the needs of your body. Both halves of you. Now, before you were just feeding the flesh, doing what the body thought it needed to survive to avoid extinction. The soul was just always hungry, always just thirsty and dying and like barren, dry bones. But now that we put spirit first, this is Christ talking, now that we put spirit first, because we can put the body on the cross, that's no big deal. Put the strategies of the flesh on the cross. And I walked out the tomb, which shows you that you're going to be fine. Like, it is going to feel like death. But I promise you'll come out of this and it'll be better. You'll be in something that can't be crucified, can't be killed, can't be destroyed. You already have it all. His infinite enabling and empowering atonement. When we believe in it, and we watch his modeling and we go like, he walked out the tomb. Maybe I can walk out of putting my flesh up on the cross, putting these old strategies to bed, trying his strategies for power. Maybe I'll come out okay too. As we do that, we just operate out of abundance. I am just like the great I am. And he came to give life and to give it abundantly. More than is needed, needs and wants are met, always met in him when our eyes are laser focused on him. He always provides. And when we see that, our energy for doing is just spillover. We're not because I have to anymore. Because I want to. Because I got extra. Who needs me? Who wants to play? Let's have some fun. This is the shift that every human must come to or remain in the pit. The strategies of the flesh are short-term because the flesh dies. The strategies of the spirit are long-term because the spirit lives forever. It's not personal. It's not an insult. It's just what happens. So everyone must go through it or just keep getting short-term results. Remain unsatisfied. Remain unfulfilled. Never slake the thirst of your spirit. Never know who you are. Or choose Christ and know that I am. What? You answer it. You can label me. I'm indescribable. I can't be contained. Like Christ, the tomb couldn't contain him. That's the spirit. That's the idea. That's the energy. That's the structure of motivation for navigating life. It comes through faith in Christ. And I'd love to show you how I depict that. I'd love to show you how that's depicted in the ABBA pattern. You've got A at the top. And that's us coming to earth getting bodies. Down at B, we're at earth. We have the bodies. And because we've forgotten that we came from heaven, what do? We immediately employ the strategies of the flesh. Okay. Doesn't work. And we would keep doing it if Christ hadn't come and showed a different way. That's why he did come. And he's like, yeah, I get it. It doesn't work. Watch this magic trick. I come out the tomb. And we're like, oh, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's a new way. And that recalls in our soul a remembrance of what we were before we came to earth. Spirit. We're like, oh yeah, I can't die. Death's not the end. I'm going to live now. Thanks, death, if anything, for motivating me to live. Knowing that there's like a finish line. Let me have some fun and do these things. Not in the way of when my flesh dies, everything ends. But in the way that the flesh isn't me anymore. And yes, it has needs and it has cravings. And we take that to Christ and he's like, yeah, we'll meet those too. The two become one, the spirit and the flesh. But when you lead with spirit, the needs of spirit and flesh are met. When you lead with flesh, the needs of neither are sustainably met. So we transition from A to B. And then, here on earth, when we follow Christ, we transition back from B to A. We remember our spiritual aspect. And it helps when we get older through life. Our body ages, and we look in the mirror, and we're like, and that spiritual eternal element in us is like, I haven't aged a day. This body is false. It's not telling me the truth about me. I am eternal. I really haven't aged. Somebody believe me, I really haven't. And it's true. But when we really rest in that, we don't need anybody to tell us. Christ is there with us. His Spirit. The remembrance of what happened after his 3 days in the tomb. We see that, we remember it, we exercise faith in it, and he's there with us. And we're one, eternal, happy, fulfilled, not in scarcity, not reaching, not grabbing, not stealing, not taking, confiscating, oppressing. We're just overflowing. We're filled from the inside out. And so we're like, who needs help? What can I do? Here I am, ready to give. That's the transition from B back to A. And the gospel of Jesus Christ, as it's been explained through canon, the God of the Old Testament, the God from A to B, the way he interacted with humanity was very flesh first. It was calling Abraham and saying, the promises that I give you, Abraham, that your seed will be as many as the sands of the sea and more numerable than the stars in the sky. People were thinking babies, physical babies. The idea of creating in the next life. Not a lot of people have that understanding. So they're looking at Abraham and his promises as flesh, and that's why the Jews, as Christ was coming, were like, we're the seed of Abraham. They were talking about literal, and that's why they kept the genealogy and the records, and it was so important, flesh-focused. And much that occurred between Adam and Christ, between God's interactions with mankind, they were just thinking in those terms. The kingdom of God, David enlarged it by the sword. So when Christ's coming, a lot of them were expecting Christ to enlarge the kingdom on earth. Right then, in a physical way. They didn't understand the two as one, the component of spirit and flesh. And so it pivoted the strategies of the flesh, even if sort of the God of the Old Testament sort of leaned into that perspective a little bit, or nudged us in that direction. I don't know. I'm not blaming God for anything, but God certainly understands, and that's why Christ came to acknowledge the results of those failed strategies when we put flesh first in the meeting of needs. And then the God of the New Testament, Christ, leads with Spirit. So that's the shift from B to A. So historically, in the context of God's interactions with humanity, we have a sort of A to B is flesh first, Spirit follows. There's tangible outward ordinances. But from B to A, when that happens for us individually, because this pattern is applicable at every scale, micro, macro. Zoom in, zoom out, doesn't matter. You're going to find this ABBA pattern. Abba. That is what we will find when we seek God. Not just externally, but internally. And we find that he is mingled throughout both. When that happens for us, we shift from B back to A. And we go, okay, I've been doing flesh first, trying to find spirit. I've been having just as much sex as I can, hoping to spark romance and love. It just didn't work. The Boy Scouts were wrong. You rub that stick long enough, a spark will come. It doesn't. It doesn't. Not in the relationship between spirit and flesh. I mean, you try. You get as close as you can. You create as potent symbols as possible. You even construct the human bodies as symbols for these spiritual realities. And you even make sex the pinnacle expression of these invisible realities. And watch, they'll just go through the motions. They'll do all the rites and rituals. And, at church and in the bedroom, they'll perform all the functions and still not see that flesh never makes spirit. Only spirit can make flesh. And that's why leading with spirit, switching this power paradigm from flesh first, spirit follows, to spirit first, flesh follows, is the only sustainable strategy for meeting the needs of the human soul on an individual or world level. That's the solution. And Christ showed us how to flip that switch. And that's why he's the solution. And when we follow him, we become part of the solution. And we don't have to judge the world or condemn the world any more than we have to judge or condemn our past. We were that. We just have to keep and continue in Christ, continually redirecting and reorienting, spirit first, flesh follows. It's why we go to church, take the sacrament. We need these reminders because the biological default is just so automated. We just keep doing that, and the world will follow. The light will be generated as we follow the light, who is Christ. And people who are desperate for light will come to it. They'll say, oh, there it is on the hill, a city, a person set on a hill. And they will flow to it, the hungry, spiritually hungry, the unfulfilled, the unsatisfied. That's the potency of the ABBA pattern. That is why you need to flip the power paradigm switch and stop creating strategies for meeting your needs from the flesh and the body and a scarcity and a get, have, steal, cheat to whatever it takes to get there mode, and find Christ and let him convince you that you are whole. Let him make you whole. Believe that you're whole just by watching what happened to him and say, well, heck, if I'm constructed in the same way as Christ, half divine, half animal, maybe I can survive a similar process, a similar undergoing, a similar undertaking. Believe in him, watch him, and know what he really stands for, what he was really doing in Jerusalem when he came, and what he's doing now. And what's coming next? It all makes sense within the context of this ABBA pattern. For the first shall be last, but the last shall be first. And at the end game, the two become one. Spirit and flesh. From spirit to flesh, and then from flesh back to spirit and flesh, where the needs of the whole soul are met. But you got to switch the strategy, the power paradigm for meeting needs. From have, do, be, to be, do, have. And you can get this shirt at my store, eekbin.us, eekbin.us. Follow me on Where to Become One on YouTube, any other social media platform, or reach out to me for one-on-one coaching. Till next time.